Good morning. Today on the channel, we are back on our Detroit diesel lawnmower, and we are working on fabbing up some bracketry to mount up our gearbox into the chassis of the mower. So hang around. We have our gearbox all cribbed up to roughly the center line of the crank. From here, I can measure our height of the bracket from the mower chassis to the top of the box. We are slightly below the center line of the crankshaft as it sits right now, so I will get a precise measurement and raise that box that much with my bracketry. And yeah, from here we'll get some measurements, pull some measurements, and start drawing pretty pictures on some plate and get to cutting. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and assume that's nice and hot. That'll do. There you have it. Yeah, I'm using 3/8 plate for these brackets just because I do not have enough quarter plate on hand. My only other option would be 1-inch plate, which, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So this will work fine. A little overkill, but it'll work. Okay, so after a painstakingly extraordinarily long amount of time with the angle grinder, we got our 4 pieces all cleaned up, got some edges beveled, and they are ready to weld up. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up the Lincoln and let that thing warm up for a couple minutes, and we will burn these things together. them warm up for a couple minutes. been working on figuring how to couple our gearbox to the flex plate here. I was toying with the idea of putting a Lovejoy coupler in there. The problem with that is the length of every Lovejoy coupler that is designed for a 1-inch keyed shaft. Every one of them I could find was too long to fit my gap between the end of the shaft on the box and the back of the flex plate. I did have this one coupler that's just a fixed coupler laying around that is 1-inch keyed. I don't have a Woodruff key in there at the moment. That's why it just spins freely on that shaft. But I figured out the center line of where the gearbox needs to be and marked it. I went ahead, put the pulley on the belt, actually got the clutch pedal about vertical, which is the other mower. I have an additional mower that's this exact same model, and its pedal at rest is nearly vertical, just like that. So that's the right tension for the tensioner, and still has enough clutch throw to disengage the belt drive. So I did that, got that set to where that's vertical, and then roughly, held it in there, the belt with the pulley on it, and then the center line of where that shaft would be in the pulley, marked it on the deck of the mower on both sides, squared that, drew a line across that, found my center line of my mounting brackets, drew a line on that, and then figured out where center is for that. All right. So as far as coupling to the flex plate, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that fixed coupler, and then I have, this is a piece of 1/2-inch plate that just so happens to have a 1-inch diameter hole in it. I don't know what it was from, but it was laying around. So I will mark out 3 of the 6 flex plate bolts on my plate here, and I'll get those drilled to the center line. And then, let's see if I can do this, roughly with one hand. You'll get the idea. That will bolt onto the back of the flex plate. You'll still have the 3 that hold that squarely off the back of the crankshaft, because those bolt heads recede in past the end of the crank. And then, so 3 of those will bolt that plate to the back of the flex plate or crankshaft. And then this fixed coupler I will weld to that 1/2-inch plate. And then we'll have our 1-inch Woodruff key, as well as these 2 hex cap set screws to tighten that down. So that's what we'll do as far as coupling to the flex plate or crankshaft. On the bottom, let's see if we can get you in there. Maybe. So you could see there's a decent gap here still from the bottom of the gearbox and the bottom of that shaft down to where I'm going to have to mount it. So what I'll be doing on that is I'll be taking another one of these fixed couplers, and then I will take a piece of 1-inch keyed shaft, get that measured out when it gets here. We'll put our coupler on, we'll couple the end of that gearbox shaft to the coupler, and the other end of that coupler to an additional piece of 1-inch shaft, and then our double stack pulley will slide onto that 1-inch shaft at the proper height. And rather than going through the hassle of drilling a center on that 1-inch shaft and threading it for a bolt to retain that pulley, which is how it would be on like a Briggs engine, your crankshaft's hollowed out, right? And the bolt's actually what retains it. Rather than going that route, I'll end up welding that double stack to the end of our additional piece of 1-inch shaft. And the disconnect joint there obviously will be the coupler, which has more than enough room to slide right through the deck. If the box needed removed or the pulley needed removed, not a big deal. So that's where we're at. So here's what I've wound up with. There is some run out between the adapter plate and this coupler. At least I think it's between that is where it's at. Could be in the crank, I don't know. I mean, the bearings could be wiped out for all I know. But being that that is a rigid mounted coupler, and that's kind of my only option on that end, to make this work with that bit of run out, at least for the time being, I've cut up some mud flap and mounted the brackets to that mud flap. That way, you know, it has a little leeway to move up and down, side to side, whatever it needs to do. It's not going to be a big deal driving the pulley. I mean, the pulley's just driving a belt, so a little bit of run out in the belt doesn't matter. So with that, I have it bolted down. Everything's all mounted up and tightened up. I put some oil in the box. going to try to start this thing and see what happens. That was angry. We're getting close. Some parts came in the mail. We have our additional coupler installed on the box now. I tried to add some shims back behind our coupler to take some of the runout out. Not very successful, but still probably gonna, shake every, well, if I had any fillings, every filling in my head out, but yeah, it'll work for now, for its maiden voyage, because so we're working with that, and we are nearing the finish line to actually get to drive this. So here's my double stack, and I have a 3-foot section of keyed 1-inch shaft. So I'm going to have to figure out what height I'm cutting this at, and then all I'm going to do is weld the pulley on this end right to the shaft. Then we'll slide it in there, set our set screws, get our belt on, and we're going to take it for a rip. Well, fellas and fellettes, there you have it. She runs and drives. That's going to do it for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. I'll catch you on the next one.